Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. It's always fun to show up for the community. As we're warming into this session, and as I look down at my mic to make sure it's working appropriately, as we come into this session, it's always nice to get those warm and fuzzies. You can see me, you can hear me, and of course, let me know where you're visiting from. We're really fortunate to have a really cool global audience. So if you want to share where you're visiting from, as always, in all these live sessions, everything is on the table, right? So this is going to be a more generic Q&A, but in our downtime while we're waiting for feedback, comments, questions, we will discuss, is Google going to have more layoffs? And we can bring it into a broader conversation of just what's the landscape, future of tech. Do we think that there could be layoffs before the end of the year, or could there be layoffs starting early next year? And there's some indicators that there are some layoffs coming, and so we'll talk a little bit about that today. So again, as you're coming in, let me know you can see. I know we have an audience already, so let me know that you can see and hear me okay, and definitely let me know where you're visiting from. Always fun to just see where people are visiting from. So let's dive in. Usually, what I do is I take the time to go backwards before going forwards. Yesterday, I did not create a new original content video. So maybe as we're coming into this session today, something else we can discuss is, well, what haven't I covered? What are some areas that you'd love to see a video on? And I do take all video suggestions very seriously. Uh, and obviously, I think I'm at 500 videos now, so it gets challenging to come up with creative content all the time. So absolutely. If anybody ever has a suggestion, that doesn't have to just be in the live session. But if you ever have a suggestion, just as you're watching the videos or looking through the comments, like happy to take any and all considerations when it comes to video ideas. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, we're really getting a nice number of people warming into this session. So where are you visiting from? It sounds like we got some good visitors, and yeah, I'm assuming you can see and hear me if you haven't told me otherwise. So um, let's kind of warm into it. I'm just going to take a moment to prompt on my services, and then we'll dive in. Just remember, this is a more generic Q&A, so any and all questions, comments, everything is on the table, okay? Um, if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's mostly resume and LinkedIn and some networking strategies. We're getting fantastic feedback on our AI tool. So just today, if you use layoffs at G as a promo code, you'll get 25% off of your 1 month or our 3 month subscriptions. Also, the course. I want to really highlight the course. Of course, we're going to do a Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. The course is being updated to include AI, right? And so I built the course a couple of years ago. It wasn't really a thing then. I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. So we'll be revamping that course to include AI modules. And so anybody who's ever purchased the course in the past, you'll have access to any updates, and anybody looking to purchase the course, I'm not going to say delay until you want to purchase it if you're interested, but we will do a pretty good Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, and new original content every Monday. And I will always let you know if I'm not going to produce a new long form video. And I did that yesterday. I did not produce a new video. So again, we have a good audience kicking off here. So as you're coming in, any questions, comments, everything's on the table. Let's dive into it. I'm just going to say hello to the people who have said hello, and then we can talk a little bit more about what's going on at Google and if we think there's going to be upcoming layoffs. Okay. Thanks so much for being here. Hi. Thanks for being here. Hey, Brendan. Great to see you. Hey, Daphne. Thanks for being here. Hope all is well in Miami. Good to see you. From Bangalore, I appreciate you being here at not probably the ideal time for you. Hey, Liz. Great topic today. What is happening with the layoffs? Update, no update, but not down here On the contrary, feeling good about prospects. Okay, good. Liz, if you want to come in and tell us a little bit more about what's going on in your world, that would be great. Hey, thanks for being here. Okay, so again, as we warm into this session, general Q&A, all questions, comments, even information that you've received or things that have come up in your world that you think might be valuable for the community. This is really a community driven live session where we're trying our best to give each other good information that we think will be valuable and bring up our unique situations, because no matter how much these items come up, every time the audience is going to be a little bit different. So tackling the similar and the same kind of items over and over again is great, because it's just giving people insight into what are the repetitive challenges we face, whether it's we're in job search, interview mode, etc. So more Google layoffs. Obviously, what I've read from after the earnings report was it just seems like the language that's being used is a little worrisome, a little troublesome. And so what do I mean by that? Not committing to no additional layoffs, to me is always an indicator that they're absolutely considering layoffs. And this isn't just Google. I mean, we can focus in on Google, but these large tech companies, we have obviously seen a trend to say, hey, like we're going to do what's best for the bottom line. And so really when we're thinking about layoffs, we're thinking about it in two specific facets. We're thinking about it from a product area perspective. How are they looking to optimize product areas for now and the future? And then what that means is, like, you could be a really high performing employee, but the product's not performing well. And that's a good opportunity for these large organizations to clean house, where they're just saying, look, a product area, it's just not going to be successful. So we're just going to focus in on that product area and lay everybody off. Now, the second one, and what I've seen really commonly with these large tech layoffs, is what happens is they're basically trying to reduce staff that is performing okay, but they don't believe is going to bring the organization to the next level. We saw a lot of this with previous Google layoffs, with Amazon layoffs, Meta layoffs. These were employees who, if they're taking a realistic snapshot of where they were at in the organization, they had probably been at the same level for a long time. They had probably consistently been meeting expectations, but not really excelling or performing at the level that they needed to. And I mean, quite honestly, of the people I knew who got laid off in Google's last major layoff, there were a lot of those people, Googlers who had been there, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and they were probably still in L4, L5, and that upward progression wasn't really tracking in the right direction. Then it becomes a question too of how do we look at these employees and moving them on to leadership? And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the logical progression for somebody who's a high performing employee. It's actually a little counterintuitive to always promote the best individual contributors. Sometimes they're really good at contributing in the role. But if people aren't really seeking out leadership or advancement or trying to get to that next level, they could actually be impacted by layoffs as well. We're just warming into this topic, but it's something we want to address. And obviously, I want to handle any questions regarding these layoffs, what you think. If you think that this is just clickbait and I'm trying to bring people in, but I'm starting to feel a little concerned just based on the messaging specifically from Sundar that there are going to be additional layoffs. It's just the way things are being messaged. It feels like they're leaving the door open for layoffs. And then it just, obviously, the last piece that we haven't talked about. So we talk about these product areas where, again, we all know that's basic common knowledge. In a product area, hey, if it's not performing well, they're going to be probably quicker to remove that product area or downturn that product area and get rid of people. People have been there a long time and haven't been performing. That's a secondary one. And I guess we haven't really talked about a little bit of, it's maybe not even a layoff, but a push towards a different process with return to office. That could be another interesting area for us to explore as well. So let's pause. Let's get to a few of the comments and then let's come right back to this. Remember, anybody who's here, any questions, comments, data, feedback, We're here for a more generic Q&A, and then we definitely want to talk about layoffs, state of the economy, etc. in this live session. Hey, Tim, thanks for being here. All right, Liz, in my world, I've reached a personal decision. I want to return to London. Okay, I was on the fence pre-election, but now I'm not. I've accepted the fact that I may not earn as much as I could in the US. Okay. Comes down to your money or your life. I choose life. Besides, some income is much better than no income as long as meeting living expenses comfortably. Found a couple of roles. Okay. And then the challenge is applying from here. Yeah. And so, Liz, and again, for anybody who's thinking about applying and you want to present sometimes what could remove some ambiguity. We want to claim sponsorship, current, like where we're at, that's going to make it feel more comfortable for our audience. So, what do we know about Liz? And many of you don't know about Liz. Liz has dual citizenship, so US and citizenship in the UK. So, Liz, that's what you want to put at the very top of your resume. You want to put stars around it. You want to highlight the fact that you are not going to have any sponsorship challenges there, something I'm sure and confident you've already done. But for anybody who it may not be clear, you may have a lot of experience abroad, you want to highlight, hey, I have my green card in the US, or I don't require sponsorship, or anything like that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we want to remove any barriers to entry. And look, some recruiters, hiring managers, they're going to be lazy. They're not going to look at you if they're going to see a lot of overseas experience. They may make an assumption that's incorrect. So often when we provide information, let's provide a little bit more, because context is key. Sometimes it's a very big missed opportunity to share. I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I hope it helps, Liz. And London's an amazing city, so I don't think anybody would think that that was a silly decision, especially with all the hurricanes and all the stuff you've been through recently. Oh, okay. This is really helpful. Your Google friends say there are a lot of smaller project cancellations and reorgs going on. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is always that's a little bit scary. And I don't want to my goal is not to overinflate here, right? But I just think we're going to see a very, very different trend. And we're talking about layoffs in more general terms. But I mean, we all know that the biggest reason why layoffs are going to become more and more prevalent is automation. These big organizations will choose automation over keeping employees, period. Like, there's no doubt about it. If one position could this is like an interesting topic to talk about, but if one position could be removed, one big organization does it. So let me throw out my case study, because I think this could happen today. Let's say an organization like a Google decides to lay off all their recruiters and completely automate recruiting, which, by the way, could be done and probably would create a better candidate experience. Well, Apple, Meta, Nvidia, all these companies, they're just going to follow suit, right? Because they're going to see it can be done, and then they're going to do it. So, I mean, when we talk about the future state of layoffs, there's going to be some major development that's going to allow us to automate out a role completely. And so what does that mean? It means it's going to happen overnight. Again, this is just my opinion, and I am not stating the future, because I obviously don't know the future. But I think once one company figures out how to automate out a role, it's going to happen across the board. And I don't think it's just, I think we also think about automation replacing the really easy jobs, but like software engineering is going to completely change in the next 2 to 3 years as AI gets better and better at writing code and not having any errors and having it work and building it in seamlessly. We'll see a lot less hiring of software engineers at the more junior level. It will definitely be a senior dominant engineering hiring, the way that they hire for engineers. Again, just my opinion, but another thing we want to be thinking about. Okay, Brenton, what else we got? Apple friends say they are only backfilling and getting squeezed on budgets everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's a broader conversation, and please comment on what I'm saying, 'cause I want contrary ideas because, again, I'm just throwing my opinion out there, but do we actually believe that these big tech companies are going to get bigger from an employee perspective? And I would say, I don't know for sure. Like, I don't know the total numbers, but I would say these companies are probably and most likely going to get smaller over time. Maybe not from a market cap perspective, but from an employee perspective, absolutely. I can start to automate more and more, still run my business, still run it successfully. I mean, Google got rid of a part of their ads division because they were able to automate how ads were tracked and looking at performance. So you can just imagine what automation is going to do for the future state. So if we were to take a snapshot and say each one of these companies has X number of full-time employees, X number of contractors, do we really believe that November of 2024, that a year from now we'll see a larger number? I think there's no way. I think the number of employees in these organizations will continue to go down more and more over time, and they've built the infrastructure to do it. So it's a super interesting topic. We're going to go on a lot of tangents today. I can already feel it. So again, any questions, comments, or anything that you like really disagree with, of course, we're here to disagree in a positive manner, but would love to hear anybody's thoughts who's on this live session. We got a really good audience today. Hey, thanks for being here. Okay. I have some concerns now, given that I'm planning to accept an offer at Google Cloud. Okay, so let's take a step back. You should definitely accept that offer. And this is not meant to be gloom and doom. It's to talk about the reality of the market and the future state of the market. But Google Cloud, again, it depends on the role and if you want to share that role. But Google Cloud is performing really well, and there's just a lot of facets of Google Cloud that still require massive human interaction, because a lot of these cloud roles are like customer engineer roles where you're having to convince other humans of the viability of it. You're having to do a lot of communication. So there's less fear of those jobs being lost in the near future. Exactly. Thanks for that, Jeff. The hurricanes and the overall stress in the USA has gotten too much. Thanks for understanding. Well, I mean, Liz, I mean, we can say whatever we want about what's going on in the US, right? And I think for context, we have some division in the US, and that's not uncommon in all countries, right? But I think the more positive note is that London is an amazing city, and if you have the opportunity to reload there and work there, I don't think anybody would. It's just such an amazing place that, and such a good jumping off place to go to other amazing places. So, I think if that's the decision you've made, it's great. I, Jeff, had two early career SWE team match calls, 1 and 2 weeks ago, respectively, but I haven't heard back from my recruiter after following up. Is this normal? So, yes, it's normal, and no, it's not okay. Uh, I don't really understand why recruiters just can't say, hey, still waiting on feedback. Hey, still waiting on data. Hey, I'll get back to you. It's a 3-second email, and it would give you the warm and fuzzies. And they just choose no communication over a no update. The no update as humans, we love it. We just know that the person's thinking about us, they're aware of us, they know like we're out there in the world. But with no update, we don't know what the heck is going on. And so, I think that what I've seen, and let's be really tough. I mean, the Google recruiting is going downhill and has been for a long time. And just like the overall behavior is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't get an update within 24 hours. It's a very easy system to build, to go through your email at the end of every business day and say, are there any candidates that I need to follow up with? They can get through all those follow ups in about 5 minutes and be done. And that's what I did every day. And by the way, I can tell you, at certain points, I had so many roles, I had so much going on, and that was never a challenge. It's a lack of organization, and it's really frustrating. And you need to keep following up and just be gracious and kind. Just continue to say, hey, still interested in the role, just want to follow up. I hope all is well. Just continue to follow up. And then if you haven't heard back by next week, then that's when I want you to use this email. If you haven't heard back by next week, Google-candidate-support at google.com. And that's an overseas team that will poke your recruiter. I'm getting more and more feedback that even though recruiters are getting poked by this team, it's still not always they're not always responding. The other piece that I have stayed away from recently, but let's just dive into it a little bit, is the fact that we just need to give these recruiters a terrible feedback in the feedback surveys. It's just totally unacceptable that they wouldn't get back. Let's go back to your comment. Sorry. It's just totally unacceptable that it would take a couple weeks. And no, it's not normal, but yes, recruiter communication is a major, major challenge. So keep us updated, please. Hey, Jeff, your videos are super helpful. Thank you, and more power to you. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. I love it. And we're super fortunate. I always want to kind of highlight, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a super positive community. It's if you've never read any Seth Godin books, I highly recommend all of his books. But we build tribes, and so I think the tribe or the community that I've built tends to be really grateful and positive. That's not a coincidence, right? People tend to be attracted to similar kind of personality types. And so, yeah, every time anybody comes in and says something positive, I just want to say thank you. I've also heard about reorgs, and your title today makes me think it's perhaps why my recruiter went dark. Okay, although I would have loved to receive an offer for that role, but it was not in the UK. Yeah, and I think here's the other, let's talk about a tip. Things do happen. I always want to back things up. If I don't hear back from my recruiter, hopefully I've connected with my recruiter on LinkedIn, or I know who they are on LinkedIn, and I can go back and reference, are they still there? But this is another major challenge I've seen at big organizations. There's no transition. When a recruiter leaves, every candidate in the process should receive an email. Your new recruiter is Jane Smith. Your new recruiter is Bob Smith, whatever it's going to be. And even that, when I left Google, I had a list of all my candidates who were active. I sent that list to my boss, and there was no transition of any of those candidates. I did everything I could to control that transition, and I know it didn't happen. So it's systems and processes that need to be put in place. Yeah, and accountability. And I think that one of the ways that, again, I think recruiters will be automated out in the near future. But if there was an accountability process that was just based around candidate experience for recruiters would always get back to their candidates. But since there's no accountability built in, they basically can ghost or not do anything, and there's no repercussions for those actions. So it's a systems and process issue, in my opinion. Hey, Jeff, per my last update, still waiting on a business systems analyst L3, L4 opening. But given today's topic, I believe that I might also go on hold. Also still doubtful whether HC would consider me as an L3 or L4 based on my experience. Again, I want to be really clear that I'm just really tapping into Sundar's most recent comments. When asked about layoffs, he was, I think the best word would be maybe cavalier, or just not fully transparent that wouldn't happen. And so without a confirmation, an absolute confirmation in life and anything, if somebody's absolutely not, then we know it's on the table. And the way that he skated around it concerned me. And when I actually saw that yesterday, which is the reason why I wanted to talk about it a little bit in the live today. In regards to you, we don't know if it's been on hold. The longer you're in the team match stage, it just, or like waiting on an opening, it can just take some time. It's really hard to understand if you're an L3 or L4. That's got to be approved at the later stages of the process, and we don't know, right? And that line, it's a line that like sometimes can get pretty fuzzy. Usually at 5+ years, you're going to be a 4, but that's not 100% the case. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, here we go. Your experience is 6 years BSA L4. L4, I guess at least A plus. No, no, no. You should be an L4 at 6 years of experience, especially if it's role relevant. If your experience has mostly been as a business systems analyst or an analyst or a business analyst, um, you should be a 4, in my opinion. Do you have any pointers for a noogler to be successful in the first 3 to 6 months, especially if it's a consulting role with GCP? So, um, let's just talk more generically. This is for every single role. When we onboard, and this is going to be a bit of a tangent, so stick with me a little bit. When we onboard, I believe every new employee should go absolutely above and beyond. Why? Because we're trying to build a brand and we're trying to build that brand quickly. So we'll get back to that in a second. So, what does that mean? It means volunteering, taking on extra work, and grinding. Look, not everybody's going to agree with this, but let's get back to the pause from a second ago. Here's why. If you build a very strong brand early on, people like you, they're going to assume positive intent. And if you mess up, they'll say, oh, well, that employee, like they've been doing really good. Like that's probably just a little error. Like let's work on that with them. Whereas if you don't take all those extra steps early on, there can be a negative lens given to you where it's like if you do something wrong or mess up, it's like, oh, that person doesn't take on anything extra. Like they're probably just trying to slack or get through. We can build a really strong brand early on in 3 to 6 months. And then maybe our work isn't ideal after that, but it takes a long time to chop that positive brand and turn it into a negative brand. It's a weird way to tackle it, but I just always tell people collaborate, go above and beyond early on because building that strong brand will take a long time to get rid of that positive brand. I mean, that was kind of my story at Google. I built a very positive brand, and then over time, it wasn't quite as positive for a number of reasons. But once you build it up positive in the beginning, it will take a long time to break it down. I don't know if that helps. I hope it does. Hey, Jeff, considering an offer in New York City and wondering if this location is being targeted for layoffs. I've seen a lot of PMs leave Google and NYC over the last year. I do not believe that, well, actually, let me take a step back. I don't think that layoffs are, sorry, I keep restating because I think layoffs can be location specific, right? Okay. So, like, let's just call it that. Is New York being targeted as a location for layoffs? Um, I don't believe so. I don't think that the large markets are targeted as layoff markets because it's talent. Like in the big markets, usually there's a lot of talent, and though that talent is going to drive the success of the organization. So I think in maybe smaller locations, or there, yes, you can move people to more cost efficient locations. So I mean, yes, you kind of have a valid argument, but I just don't see an overall trend, or have not heard of an overall trend to reduce positions in New York. Are those offices more expensive? Sure, but they're already in place, right? And are they going to have to pay you more in that location? Absolutely, but that's just a cost of labor, right? And you're not going to remove all these people from the Bay Area in New York just because the cost of labor is extremely high in those areas. So I wouldn't be too concerned about accepting this offer. Now, again, PM, I'm assuming that's product manager. That could also be program manager. It's something at Google they call program managers PGMs, but again, that's just like internal knowledge and data. So Maybe come back. You've seen a lot of PMs leave Google, and just if it is product managers, like I wouldn't be surprised by that, just because product managers, that role is very hot. So there's like just tons and tons of opportunities for strong product managers, especially product managers who have worked at Google. We have a great audience right now. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. At the 30s, I'm just going to prompt 30 seconds on my services. If you're here today and you want to check out my AI tool, it's a 7-day free trial. But if you want to use the promo code layoffs at G, you get 25% off of our 1 month or 3 month package today. If you go to practice interviews, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy, mostly resume and LinkedIn. And of course, we still have that killer interview mastery course, which is getting fully updated to include AI modules. And that will be done before our kickoff of our Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. And we will definitely be highlighting that course in those sales. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific every Tuesday and new original long form content every Monday. And if I'm not going to produce content or go live, I will always leave a comment in the community tab. All right, let's dive right back into it. Okay, I'm in the process at G. They are using supportive external agencies, Randstad in my case, and the difference between agency and direct GHR is huge. It can create misleading picture of the GHR. Okay, so I want to be really clear on this. So like I was a contract recruiter at Google. If your recruiter is Randstad, that person is actually embedded in Google. If we're talking about full-time roles, those recruiters are embedded. They're basically Google employees. But because they're a contractor and Google is using them, a third party, they have to say that they're at Randstad, but they're really Google employees. They don't have any less access to information, to guide you, etc. And really for me, like contractor to full-time employee, I never saw a big difference between the two. That's just my opinion, but it shouldn't be misleading. Almost all big tech companies have a large component of their recruiting base, maybe 30%, 40%, 50% as contractors. It's an extremely high turnover role. So they have to hire contractors, see if they work out, and then ultimately maybe convert them to full-time. But you may have a not great recruiter, but yeah, I think there's a little confusion. That person is actually working at Google, not at Randstad. Randstad just pays their check, basically. I hope that helps. Thanks, Jeff. This is reassuring and appreciated. The warm fuzzies would be really nice right now. Sounds good. I'll reach out for candidate support next week. Okay, I think sounds like a good plan. Hey, Jeff, the role I'm planning to accept is a TAM, Google Cloud. Okay. And the location is the Bay. Yeah, TAMs are great roles. And I don't think you should be concerned about that role being removed. It's this nice mix of a little bit of technical skills and communication skills. I have a mastermind group, and we were meeting last night, and one of the people in my mastermind group was arguing against my communication philosophy, but here it is. I think the roles that require heavy human interaction and communication are very, very safe from AI and automation. I think there are other roles that aren't. So I look at a TAM role and I think, wow, that is a position that is dependent on strong communication skills, which makes me feel like it's pretty safe to automation. And just the way that Google Cloud is growing, I feel like it's a safer position. And they are hiring and have been hiring way less TAMs. So if you're one of the people that they identified as a strong TAM, I think that's also a really good sign. Hey, Jeff, just curious about Google Layoffs USA. Would an account strategist in the LCS Engage be an area that you would predict would be affected by layoffs right now or in the future with automation? Future, yes. Current state, no. Like, remember, an account strategist, for anybody who's not aware, account strategists are like, it's a more of an entry-level role, but it's still a fantastic high-paying role. They work with Google Ads and clients in the Google Ads space, and it's just a high churn job. And it's not because Google churns these people out. It's just because it's an entry level role, and any entry level role is going to have a higher level of churn. I love the account strategist role. It's an amazing opportunity at like the L3 or L4 level, a lot of L3, to make fantastic money in your early to mid 20s typically. Learn a lot about how to interact with clients, learn a lot about the ad space in general. And I think these roles will exist for a long time, but in the future state of automation and how they roll out reporting and utilization, all those things in a future state, are those jobs, are there going to be less of those jobs? Yeah, I think there will be. I have round 2 at G tomorrow for a GNL and a data analytics role. Wish me luck, and any last minute tips are appreciated. You're doing great work with your honest videos, and they've been very helpful to me. All right, well, thanks, John. I appreciate the positive feedback. What has been the trend? Again, everything is my outside lens. Some things are shared with me with current Google employees, but like in the Googliness and leadership interview, it's just, to me, everything has been driving towards decision making. I'm always looking for themes. And so in this GNL interview, it's like, tell me about a decision you've made in the last year or two that you would change. Tell me about a decision that had a positive impact on the organization. Tell me about how you make decisions when working with other colleagues. How do you take multiple colleagues and their decisions and collaborate and bring them together? Like, it's a lot of decision making on the behavioral side, and then they'll put you in hypothetical scenarios for how you make decisions. So decision making is number one, and it has a strong lean on collaboration too. And then third is you got to bring in that inclusive lens. The biggest misconception about the GNL interview is that it's all behavioral. It leans behavioral. If we were to cast a wide net, it's probably 65% behavioral, but you are absolutely extremely likely to get multiple, at least one hypothetical question. So you got to be prepared for everything. Good luck. Practice like a crazy person today. Do everything you can to practice, and yeah, wish you the best of luck. Hey Jeff, is interviewing 3 or 4 times for various positions at one company but not getting hired a negative? Well, let's talk about it. So maybe there's a little something in the interview skill set or your interview prep where it just needs a little bit more, like, you just maybe, again, I want to say this in the nicest way, but maybe just put in a little bit more work on the interview skills. And then I would like, let's highlight the positive. If they keep bringing you back for positions or multiple roles, it means they like you. You are doing a great job and you're getting close. So double down on the practice, double down on the prep, really dig into it and work, because my best guess is if you're getting all these interviews, you're probably really, really close. Okay. So I hope that helps. Just hopped on. If it's been asked, I'm sorry. How is November through January hiring? I assume it's next to nothing, and I could take a break from thinking about interviews. Okay. So it's a great question. Let's talk a little bit about the timing. I mean, November is typically a very, very hot month. Why? Because historically, what most companies do is, not most companies, but a lot of companies, it's like a use it or lose it, right? Like if you don't fill this role within the calendar year, and calendar and fiscal are almost always the same. There's outliers like Microsoft, for example, doesn't follow a calendar fiscal year, but most big tech and most companies do. And a lot of these hiring managers like, hey, if you can't fill the role this year, you're going to lose headcount. So you see a massive push, especially in November, to get these roles filled. And even into December a little bit. I think people would be surprised at how many hires actually happen in December. But that's like the first week of December, maybe lingering into the second week of December. And then there's a shut off. And yeah, as we get into January, I think there is a misconception that companies all of a sudden have this renewed headcount and we have all these people that we're going to just hire now. It's like, no, it takes a little bit of time to roll on that headcount. Small companies can be pretty nimble, but at the big companies, getting all that headcount approval, it definitely rolls into the following year. If you don't have any interviews right now, taking a break, maybe I would try and do a little bit more of a push for the next week and a half. Then if you are thinking about, okay, so like let's push to the end of the following week. So we're talking about like November 22nd, for example. Then you want to start mapping out your job search plan. How are you networking, doubling down on LinkedIn and starting to build stronger connections so that you are rolling into next year with some momentum? I think a lot of people just kind of shut down, and that can really set you back by months. So I love December as a heavy, heavy networking month. People usually have a little bit more time to give you. Things are slowing down a little bit. So again, push things till the end of next week and then maybe work on a little bit more of a networking push over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the year. That's my recommendation. Hope that helps. I accepted a Google offer last week and they are holding higher. Or what do you mean? Wait a second. Let's go to this. The role was accepted as a software engineer L3. The offer I took was for Mountain View. I want you to come back. Tell us more. What did they say? They said holding higher. I think I need a little bit more information and definitely want to help you because this sounds like a very, very unique case. Thanks, Chef. As always, super helpful. P.S. My recruiter is very good too. Yeah, and I think everybody knows I'm pretty positive, but I'm very tough on recruiters. Very tough. And I hope I've earned it. Right. I hope I earned it with 15 years of recruiting experience. Not all that you'll see on my LinkedIn profile. I had a recruiting client for 3 or 4 years after I left Google. But it's just some of the simple things just shock me. And I created at Google, for example, I created a candidate experience training in collaboration with others that was supposed to be part of the onboarding process. I don't know if that's still being used, but one of the teachings was how to follow up with candidates and how to create that system. And if everybody followed that system, literally no candidate would be ghosted. No candidate would wait more than 24 hours to hear back. And it's a very, very simple system I built. So I get, I get really frustrated, especially because like at the big tech companies, these recruiters make a ton of money. And so the inability to follow up, I find to be challenging. Yeah. Hi, at Javier Perez. Are you in the early careers 2024 YouTube pipeline by any chance? Okay, yeah, let's get some more information. For design manager, what will you suggest me I prepare for? Okay. The position is for extended workforce solutions team. I want to be ready if you can guide me on which videos can help me. So let's talk about that guide word, okay? And this is meant to be, I hope this helps the entire audience who's here right now. Guide is a challenging word because it's very, very broad, right? Now you've given me a critical detail, which a lot of people don't give me when they ask me to guide them, but it's a design manager role. So when using or thinking about utilizing the word guide, my recommendation is to even narrow it down more. Guide you in terms of X type of interview or Y type of question, whatever it might be. What I can tell you for a design manager is you should be excellent in the design space, right? And so whatever you can do to throw that job description into GPT or Claude or Gemini and get it to create great questions. Of course, you can use my AI tool, but really dive into challenges you've had on the design side, really positive examples of how you've worked on the design side, and then scenarios. What is the job going to put in front of you from a scenario-based design challenge perspective? And how do you solve for that? Those are some of the preparation items I recommend. And I want to be really clear on the guide word. It's just context is everything. I'm really a communications coach. And so I so often, and I don't know what's pushing towards the guide word, but I get that a lot. And so the more specific we can be, and again, people come on LinkedIn and like on these YouTube comments and ask me for a lot of things. The more specific details without being too verbose, it's like that's the best way for me to help people. And it's just a good general communication tip as well. But I hope those specific tips I gave you help. What is leading you to think that there are more Google layoffs, i.e., the title of the video? Specifically, it's Sundar's latest comments when asked about layoffs and how he navigated around the question and would not commit to the fact that there wouldn't be layoffs. The only way I don't believe layoffs are coming is if he had made a strong commitment that they weren't going to lay off. He can't do that. He doesn't have that power. That's the board of directors. That's all the shareholders, and there's millions of them, right, who are going to put pressure down on him. So I understand why he couldn't answer the question. But the reason for triggering this was I saw that article pop up and I thought, well, we should at least be talking about it. And then what I love about a community driven live platform like we are here, specifically on YouTube and LinkedIn, is that we can get additional feedback from the community on what they're hearing. But that was the main driver for this. I saw that article pop up and I'm always trying to think about, okay, in the live sessions, what's relevant? What's something that people want to talk about? And then in our downtime, which we did mostly earlier on in this session, we talked a little bit about it. And anytime we get slow, it's definitely something I want to address. But just an interesting talking point for sure. I'm at 9 years of experience, assuming an L4, L5, and Randstad recruiter as a TVC, I guess. But she isn't that helpful. She has asked me the lowest salary you can join during screening round. Okay. All right, cool. All right, John, let me see. Let's see. And I'm interviewing for G Tech Ads team with G Customer Solutions. Okay, cool. Yeah, 9 years is going to be right on the cusp of a 4 or 5. Obviously, we're pushing for a 5. Salary expectations, no way. Not going to answer that question. I'm open and negotiable for the right opportunity. I haven't met the team. I haven't met the hiring manager. I don't know enough about the position. I can't possibly give you salary expectations, but I'm happy to discuss that in the future. Deflect, deflect, deflect. Hey, if you're interviewing at Google, like, okay, like they're never going to stop the process because you don't give them salary expectations. The only companies that would really do that might be like a startup who says like, hey, we just don't have the bandwidth to go through the interview process. And then in those cases, what's the salary range for the role? We don't know. Well, you're asking me for my salary expectations, but you don't know the range. It would be really helpful if you could go find the range, and then I can tell you whether it fits into my expectations. And of course, we're going to say that in the nicest way possible. But I wouldn't worry about giving your salary expectations at this point. And recruiters should always ask. 100% of the time, I would ask my candidates for their salary expectations in the first conversation. If they give it to me, it's an advantage for me as a recruiter. So I'm always going to ask. And I have a funny story. And people sometimes know that I'm a little bit of a storyteller, which I strongly encourage people to avoid during the interview process. But at Google, I was in Austin teaching some like recruiting strategies to the sourcing team. And I absolutely pushed all sourcers to ask for those salary expectations. In the first conversation, I got some pushback and I was very surprised by that. I think every initial interaction, that should be one of the first questions that's asked. Somebody has absolutely major unrealistic expectations. It's something that I want to address and get in front of as early on as possible. If your recruiter doesn't ask you that in the first conversation, they're not great, in my opinion. That should be asked in every first conversation. To be honest, I don't know. I got reached out for a previous application. Okay, and Javier, we're going back to, yeah, yours was this is for the L3 Mountain View role, right? But they're holding the hire. Again, like if we can get some additional context there, I want to be as helpful as possible. Okay, so I got that one. Hi, Joy. I I think I know my own name, I hope. Hi, Jeff. I know it may be tough to say, it may vary. Uh, for a non-eng role with 3 rounds of interviews, pure HM and cross-functional, how many candidates might Google interview? Okay, no, this is a very, I feel like this is a relatively easy question. Historically, what I would see for a role, and let's take Google. Obviously, we're talking about Google here. For a role that maybe had a specific hiring manager, maybe 8 to 10 would make it to the phone interview stage. Let's say 10. We're just going to use some really round numbers. 10 make it to the phone interview stage. 5 make it to the on-site or virtual on-site stage, and of those 5, 1 gets an offer. So usually by the interview stage, you're like a 1 of 10. Now that doesn't mean that any of those on-sites actually work out, but classically those are some good averages. So once you get into the process, you're probably just 1 of 10. Still a lot. These roles are super competitive, but a good way to think about it. So if you're having the slate of interviews, you're a 1 of 5. Maybe some fuzzy math, but I hope it helps. Thanks, Jeff. That's encouraging. It's hard not to get discouraged by so many rejections at this end, but I will definitely double down on the interview prep. Every rejection is getting you closer to a yes. It is a incredibly difficult mindset and so easy for me to say, but it's actually not easy for me to say because I'm working the B2B side of my AI tool business, and I can't even tell you, I've gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's. Each one, I'm like, all right, boom, I'm on to the next one, on to the next one, because you just got to keep going. And when I say hundreds of no's, a lot of those are just no responses, no interest, nobody even following up, no matter how good the messaging, no matter how specific it was to their business. And each one, I'm like, all right, push it aside and move on. Do I get frustrated? 100%. I get frustrated. Do I want to give up all the time? Sure. But the only thing we can do is keep going because I feel like you're really, really close. So anything you can do right now to keep going, strongly encouraged. Okay, with Javier. Okay, I see. I'm being considered on early career roles within YouTube, and they are moving pretty fast, and we're looking for candidates who can start by December 16th at the latest. Okay. Let's see if we have any additional on this. Okay. Well, okay. Good luck. I mean, I definitely want you to start this year if you can. So get those refreshers guaranteed. That's really important. So trying to get started this year would be great. Okay. So the question is, they're holding the hire since I joined because the title mentioned layoff happening. I want to make sure I'm not moving to California to get laid off right away. The position is not being put on hold, or at least what I know. Okay. You're not moving to California to get laid off. And it's typically layoffs are not what's referred to as it's kind of like it's called LIFO. I know it's terrible acronym, but it's like last in, first out, meaning you get in and then layoffs happen and you're the first one out. That has not been Google's philosophy when laying off. They've laid off typically more tenured employees unless, again, it was a product area that was going down, and then newer employees would be laid off. But you're not moving to California just to be laid off. It's a question. We don't know. I think there will be more layoffs. They may be on a smaller scale than that big chunk that happened, the 12,000 person layoff. But I believe there are going to be more layoffs. I think they'll be on a smaller scale, but just all the indications are not a downturn economy, but automation and them looking to lean out staff. These big tech companies overhired for years and years, and so they need to lean it out a little bit. What is the growth path for somebody entering a sales team as an account manager or account strategist? Curious if people get stuck in those positions, or is there a good path beyond sales? For context, I also have a master's. Okay. So I don't think that the master's matters. Again, that's just my 2 cents. I don't think degrees matter anymore. I don't think that they're looked at the same way they used to be. But you got it, and that's fantastic. And it's more of the learnings and knowledge that's going to be applicable as you move forward in your career. But yeah, the path is like, if you're looking at Google, it's account strategist up to account manager up to account executive. But those roles teach a lot of critical skills, critical thinking, communication. So you could move into maybe like a strategy and operations role. You could move into a program manager role. You could move into a sales role on a different team, different product area. So they're definitely jumping off positions with lots of opportunities. Can you guide me on the facilities technician interview and what that would look like? I'm in the process right now, round one. So facilities technician interview, you're in the process right now. So round one, I'm assuming that's some sort of phone interview. Look, facilities technician, it's going to be about your ability to understand those little nuances, right? So just make sure on the behavioral side, you are talking through any facilities challenges that you've had to face, some big wins. And then, of course, they're going to put you into scenarios where you're going to have to talk through how you would handle a potential scenario or issue and be thinking through that. And we can leverage our past experience to do that. We can just hear the hypothetical questions, say, have I done that in the past? Okay, I have. That's going to help lead and guide me when I get to the solution stage of my answer. Seems like a very high level answer. Let me know if you have more questions. My rec said my on-site feedback is positive enough to go to hiring committee. Is it common to go to HC instead of team match? This is for YouTube pipeline. I'm going to try and take you to hiring committee if the feedback is strong. So it's usually a good indication of strong feedback, because ideally, if you can get HC approved and you were not matched to a team initially, then yeah, it's going to just be super, super helpful when I start to present your case to hiring managers to say, I got this candidate and they're already hiring committee approved. It's just one less barrier that a hiring manager would need to think through. And again, my best guess is that this is not for a specific role, and that's why you're going directly to hiring committee, and that's why we're talking about team match. So it sounds very, very positive on my end. Okay, Mohammed, my process was not fast, but it got faster after my team match calls. Thankfully, my first team liked me. Not sure if that's common. First team liking you, maybe like 25%. So 20%, 15%. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. And yeah, it was a mix of you being great and a little bit of luck. We always got to admit there's a little bit of luck in everything. Frequent layoff is a norm for tech companies right now. Go to layoffs.fyi. I think people might be surprised at how many of these tech companies are laying off. The person who created that, they do it as a free platform, but layoffs.fyi, look through that list. You may be surprised at all the big companies that have had layoffs, and it's a great place to track those layoffs as well. Apparently, for folks in the 2024 YouTube pipeline, there are no team match calls. We just get put into a team by the VPs. Yep. Okay. Hopefully see you there. Awesome. Sounds great. In California, they are required to post a salary range. Why not just ask for the max in the range? I would actually go a step further. If I got into the salary negotiation phase for a job, and let's say like the base salary that was presented in the job was 100 to 150K, I'd ask for 160K base. And they'd say, well, that's outside of the range. I'd love to see what the comp team can do. But just remember, with salary range, a lot of these companies, it's not just the salary range. I think that can be extremely misleading. That's just a portion of the comp. And even for smaller companies, some are going to have bonuses, but some are going to have bonuses, equity, sign-ons. So, but yeah, would I always ask for the max of the range? The max or more, 100%. Now, the I will just go back, Will, and just say the challenge with that is that these ranges are, well, you said in California. So yeah, I think in California, you go for the max of the range just for the broader audience. Like if the range is a 100 to 150 and you live in Chicago, for example, you're going to be in the mid to lower end of that range. Would I still ask for outside of the range? I would. Okay. We are at the 30s. Again, I'm just going to take 30 seconds to prompt on my services and then we'll get right back to it. If you're here today, you can use the promo code layoffs at G for 25% off of our AI tool. There's a 7-day free trial. There's no risk with signing up for that tool. Okay. So definitely highly recommend that. We're getting tons of positive feedback and we are developing, and releasing new features. And for anybody who saw it last week, we had a hiccup when we introduced company interviews. That problem was resolved early in the morning yesterday. So if you are still having any issues, just let me know. If you go to practiceinterviews.com, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy sessions. And our interview mastery course, which is getting fantastic feedback and has for 2.5 years, is going to be updated with AI modules. I'm not saying to not buy that course now if you need it, but we will be running a pretty good promo for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original content every Monday. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, let's get right back to it. Oh, sorry. Just love this exchange between the two of you. Thanks for all the positive vibes. So there's not a lot of information out there on facilities tech role related knowledge interview. There doesn't need to be. And so what I mean by that is throw the job description in to GPT or again, your preferred large language model and just say, hey, like this is the role I'm interviewing for. What questions should I expect? What role related questions should I expect? Those models will get you 80 to 90% of those role related questions. Ask for behavioral, ask for hypothetical, ask for both, but just utilize those resources and those tools to make sure that you are getting those good questions created for you. Hey, Jeff, thank you for posting great videos. Absolutely. How well G&L round defines the outcome for an L4 position. Although I personally believe I did well, but kind of stumbled on the last part of that round. It's pretty evenly weighted, honestly. And stumbling on one question's not a deal breaker. Stumbling at the end, there's some exhaustion there. It gets more challenging. So don't worry about stumbling on a question or a little bit at the end. That's not a huge deal. Usually they're all considered pretty equally because they're all important, whether it's an RRK or GCA or G&L interview, they're all important and should be weighted evenly. Hey, Jeff, just got on my first interview. Awesome. And about to go on my second for the account strategist role. Had tons of hypotheticals and used the CFAST method. Any last second tips? No, I don't want to overwhelm you. Actually, you plugged in at 9:52, which makes me think that you're in the interview now and not actually listening to what I'm saying. But between interviews, before an interview, we need to take deep breaths. We need to pause. We need to meditate. I know that's not 100% comfortable for everybody, but trying to utilize brain capacity before a job interview, you're utilizing a brain capacity that I want you to save. And that's just backed by science, right? Our brain has limited capacity. Actually, we work best in typically like 20 to 25 minute chunks, which is why interviews are not designed very well. They really should be half an hour interviews, and then people should get a half an hour break and then another half an hour interview. That would get the best version of a candidate. But I just recommend everybody kind of chill out before interviews, trying to cram and squeeze in. It's too much. So if you're still here and waiting for your next interview, deep breaths, just take the time to relax and just know that you've put in the work to do well. And good luck. What should one be doing right now to stay ahead in the tech space, particularly those in non-tech roles? What's the move to make? I constantly want people to fixate and focus on communication skills. It is the differentiator and game changer. And it translates in so many different facets. But obviously, if we're having an interview, our communication skills are key. And there's just not enough attention and focus put into our communication skills. It's just critical, right? And so some of the common areas that I think, one of the big ones that I love to talk about is context. And so where does context show up? Context shows up in two areas in interviews. It's in your situation and task and your behavioral answers and your assumptions and your hypothetical answers. Without context, as your interviewer, I don't understand. And if I don't understand, I'm not going to hire you. So the context of setting the story and the great visual and the situation and task to me is a critical communication skill. And then on the assumptions, I need to know what you're solving for. So if you're solving for food, it's terrible for me. I can't picture it. But if you're solving for pepperoni pizza, I know we're talking about dough, marinara, cheese, pepperonis, right? It's like very easy for me to picture the ingredients. The second piece is just and doubling down on this, and I'm actually going to get out my monthly newsletter to anybody who's signed up right after this, is the how. I just want people to focus in on communication skills and talking about not just what you did, but how you've done it in the past and how you would do it in a future scenario. There's nothing more critical than depth on the how. How creates a visual. Visuals make you memorable. And when you're memorable, I like you more. I know it. To me, it sounds very basic. I know there's some complexity there, but huge, huge data point, in my opinion. And a bit of a tangent. Thanks for listening. Hey, Jeff, my recruiter told me the trend she has heard from hiring committee is to down level me for the position I'm interviewing for. Is that normal at Google? Does that be aligned to budget? It's not budget. And if your recruiter told you it's a trend, well, it's been a trend for forever. Google will always conservatively level you because they believe that they are setting you up for success by down leveling. Whether that's a true statement or not could be argued for a long period of time, but they're going to level conservatively. That's the most important thing to understand and know. Okay. And it's unfortunate. I don't like it, but it's not a new trend. It's always been there, but it's not a budgeting issue. It's just them playing it conservative item. Even with internal referrals, my coworker and I have been auto rejected with no hiring team connection. So yeah, I mean, referrals don't guarantee interviews, unfortunately. And it's very important that you continue to poke and push your internal referrals. When we want something, we got to lean on the people who we believe can help us. We can bribe them too. Maybe they're like me. Maybe they love coffee, and so you bribe them with some nice coffee or a bottle of wine, or take them out to dinner or something. I know it sounds silly, but just keep pushing them. You just got to keep trying and keep trying, because eventually you'll break through. It's in the electrical division, by the way. Okay. And thank you for everything you're doing and the content you're putting out. God send and appreciate it. Absolutely. And yeah, like, you have that data point. Insert those data points into the large language model to give more specificity. Any notes, any information, any data. We do that in the AI tool. Like, you can not only build off of a job description, but any recruiter notes, any of that stuff. You can embed any of that to help you get better questions to practice. But the LLMs will do that, absolutely. How easy is it to move internally within G? Is there like a wait? Is there a wait time like 18 months, like other companies? There's so many things to consider with this, and it's a great question. So I'm gonna answer this in a slightly different way. I don't believe you should ever move internally until you've been promoted. Move teams, and that promo cycle will be set back. So even if you have challenges with your team, the product area, your manager, whatever it might be, do your best to get promoted first because it really does set the clock back. That was my experience. So the second I got promoted at Google, I was out of my team. I wanted out of my team for a long time. And so I got promoted and I made that move. I wouldn't do it beforehand. Now, typically, I would say stay at least a year in your position if you don't care about promo and then move. But a year to two is pretty typical. And then it's very easy typically to move within the same ladder. Like I moved from recruiter role to recruiter role to recruiter role, 3 moves. But if you're trying to go from like recruiter to program manager, it's a much, much different process. So that just brings up something completely different. But I like moving after a promo. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. How likely will Google withdraw offers if a layoff is coming? I would say it's extremely unlikely. People make commitments, they're aware of those commitments, and the likelihood that they would withdraw an offer, I just do not see that happening at all. Okay. Jeff, do you have a recent LinkedIn guide, or do your older LinkedIn videos still apply? Thank you as always for your amazing videos. Yeah, definitely. They still apply. I think I would the most recent LinkedIn video I did was the open to work one, but a lot of the stuff in that open to work LinkedIn video, which I think was probably maybe 2 to 3 months ago, is going to be extremely relevant. Let's just chop through it. We still got a fantastic audience. Thank you again, everybody, so much for showing up. This is one of the best audiences we've had in a while, so it's awesome. The biggest missed opportunity on LinkedIn is the LinkedIn background photo. Look, it's a call to action. Drive people to what you want them to do. So if you're open to work, I'm going to put the positions that I'm open to, and I'm going to use Canva to build that. If I'm in a job that I love, well, I want to build a visually stimulating background photo that's going to get people more attached to my background and draw them in. It's a lot of real estate. It's a missed opportunity. Smiling, shoulders and above, clean background in terms of your profile picture. Your headline is a huge missed opportunity to talk about your skills. Make sure your education, your company is up there. We can, with an upgraded account, embed a button or a link to our resume, to our company, to our open jobs. And then the about section, make sure that that's keyword driven. Make sure all that experience is filled out. Use a featured section to show off some really cool media. Only one thing. Embed media within any of your experience, but build out that experience section, build out the education. And then lastly, I love recommendations as a way to network with people. Are people really scrolling all the way to the bottom? Probably not, but that's another one. And then the last one is you can now build out 100 skills on LinkedIn. I recommend pushing towards that 100 number as much as you can. I know that was rapid fire, but that most recent video should be pretty helpful. Jeff, I cleared the onsite for an L5, got positive feedback, but a flag was raised in one coding interview. It's been over 2 months since, and I'm still waiting on a team match. What should I expect? Well, Pedro, the big question is like, what's the cadence you've built with your recruiter? So like now at 2 months, things are going to get slow, right? We're at the end of the year. So just check in with your recruiter and say, like, how often can I be checking in? Should I check in with you monthly? Should I check in with you weekly? Bi-monthly? Like, I just want to make sure that we have a cadence so I'm staying on top of the team match and staying memorable for you. But yeah, once the team match goes into the months category, it obviously does get a little harder. I mean, like a flag raised in your coding, well, it wasn't enough to not bring you to the team match stage. So it still sounds like the overall feedback was pretty positive. Yeah, I hope that answer helps. Hey, Jeff, thank you for the great videos. Absolutely. How AI will impact software engineer jobs in big tech companies for those who don't have AI knowledge? Well, it's going to impact everybody, even those that do have AI knowledge. Again, like I just am struggling. I'm struggling to see, oops, just hit that. I'm struggling to see how AI will not replace some software engineers. And it's just because the code that these LLMs can write is really good. I'm not a software engineer, so I can't speak to all of it. But I think the future state of software engineering is going to be challenging. just the better and better AI gets at it. So I think I would insulate myself as much as I can by learning AI. And I think it's also like an opportunity for us to just learn prompt engineering in general. And just, again, I know that that's a sidebar, but how are we looking at the future of engineering in general? I think will be important. I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it helps. Hey, Jeff, I have an L5 interview coming up at Google. I'm mostly worried about system design round. Could you please share some paid resources online and coaches to help in this place? There are plenty of technical coaches. I don't have one in particular that I would recommend. Obviously, I want you to use the good platforms that are out there, whether it's LeetCode or Pramp. I can't say how good they are. And I've heard a lot of times that those can be a little bit more on the junior level, but I would practice with any online tools, but I don't have a specific coach recommendation for you. I don't coach on system design. I have, but I strongly prefer not to, because if there's a gap or a missing piece, I'm gonna miss it. But I do think system design should be treated similar to CFAS. We got to clarify our design. Our design is like the framework, the components. Then we make some assumptions, and then we solve for one component at a time. So CFAS actually works for system design, but once you get into the actual design, that's where I'd lose you a little bit. So I can't give any specific recommendations, but I'm confident there are many coaches out there coaching on it. Should you be candid during the interview if you were laid off from a previous company? Totally. And so much of that is positivity. I'm really fortunate. Like, I'm really happy. This is what I learned. This is how I grew. And this is why I'm so excited to be in front of this job today. But we're not trying to hide the fact that we were laid off. Layoffs are a part of the world. And by the way, if a company is not going to hire you because you were previously laid off, I absolutely 100% do not want to work at that company. I have no interest. And this happened to a friend of mine. I got them referred into a company. They passed all the interviews. They wanted to hire this person. And then when they found out they were laid off from their last job, they didn't hire them. You want to hire the person, and then just because they were laid off and impacted by something that had nothing to do with their performance, you don't want to hire them. That's crazy. So again, that was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, be really candid, but speak positively. Unfortunately, I was part of a product area layoff. Here's what I learned there. I enjoyed my time working with the colleagues. I found it to be a fantastic opportunity. I'm just really excited to be here today. Yeah, things like that. Hey, Gary. Hey, Jeff. Just wanted to say thanks again for all your help with me landing the DT role. Awesome. 4 months in, and I'll be conducting interviews now and going back over your videos. Gary, that's amazing. And first of all, thank you so much. And second of all, like, the challenge with interview training is interviewers don't a lot of times know what to look for in a good interview answer. So if you can use some of this, it could be helpful. Now you might start laughing. I have gotten this feedback from people that somebody will use CFAS, for example, in an interview, and they just kind of laugh to themselves and think, wow, this person's using Jeff's process or method. But yeah, if there's any guidance, and you can use it as a tool to help candidates. So it's like, okay, great. Thanks so much for that. Let's get more specific. If you were to make some assumptions, like, what might you assume and how might you solve for that? So you can use the previous interview coaching from the videos to kind of like lead and guide you down that path to get the best version of candidates during the interview process. Wow, Raul, it's been a long, long time. How have you been? How's Google going? Thanks so much for showing up and being here. Yeah, it's probably been, wow, I don't know, maybe 12 to 18 months at least since you were last in a live session. So thanks for showing up. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Just keep going. Okay. Okay. Hi, Jeff. Do you mind explaining refreshers? I do not think it's important since I'm just joining now, but everybody keeps mentioning them, and my previous company did not provide stock. Refresher stock. What is the point of refresher stock? Refreshers are meant to hold you up. What does that mean? Well, you get this equity vest, right? And it's a big vest, and then After 4 years, your income and yearly earnings would go down significantly without refreshers. So let's talk about a refresher grant at Google. Our refresher grant at Google, it's a 4-year grant that's going to vest 25% per year. So it's a really easy model. So if you go to practiceinterviews.com, go to the free resources section, and you build out one of those comp models, it's a free resource, totally free. Just got to throw in your email and you can download it. You want to show what it would look like going up over time. So basically, what the heck am I talking about? Refreshers are meant to keep your income going up over time. If your income isn't going up over time, you're going to leave. And so refreshers, like a Google model, is if you work for a full calendar year. So if you get hired at the end of this year, or you've been hired at some point this year, at the end, let's say you're getting hired right now. Well, at the end of 2025, going into 2026, you're going to get a refresher grant. And that's going to be based on performance, first of all. And then it's going to be focused on manager discretion. But the whole goal is like you earn 100K in your first year, then 120K in your second year. And then you get that big promo going into your third year. Then your third year, you're at 180K. And your fourth year, you're over 200K. And the only way you can do that is through refreshers, because your initial equity grant is disappearing. And so because it's 25% per year, they're rolling one on top of another. And now that I'm saying all this, I think I did do a video on this. So if you go to my YouTube page, by the way, like if you're just not familiar, people's YouTube pages are really easy to search. If you just scroll down a little bit, it's going to show like the videos, and then on the right side, it's going to have a search button. So if you search Google refreshers on my YouTube page, I think I did do a video on this, and maybe that visual will be a little bit more helpful. But the goal of refreshers is just to keep you up so that your income isn't going down over time. That's the major goal. And the refresher grants need to be significant enough so that you're not losing money over time. So they tend to be relatively significant, but it's all going to be based on level, role, performance, and manager discretion. I hope that helps. Hello, Jeff. I received an offer from YouTube, done with T-Match, and I have a comp call with a recruiter today. I have a competing offer from Amazon. Any suggestions on negotiation? L3 SDE. Well, I wouldn't necessarily introduce the Amazon offer yet. You want to see what Google will give you. If you can, so YouTube, if you can tell me the location, maybe we can come up with a comp. Oh, here we go. Continued, the bonus at Amazon is 40K, whereas Google, I've heard it to be 20K, but base is more at Google. Well, it's also a question of equity, because Amazon backloads 80% in the last 2 years. Google front loads 70% in the first 2 years. So you will absolutely, or more likely to make more money at Google on the front end. But yeah, Amazon should have 2-year. Amazon, your sign-on bonuses should be for year 1 and year 2. And then you get that backloaded stock where you're not getting an annual bonus. Thanks for your responses. You're awesome. To be honest, I still don't understand Google compensation. Okay, well, there's really 3 major components. It's a base salary. It's a bonus. They calculate bonus as part of their compensation model because about 95% of people will hit that target number or above. So they actually build it in and say, this is what you're going to earn, just because so many people will earn that. Base percentages are 15 for non-sales roles. It's 15% target bonus for L3, L4, L5. L6 is a 20% bonus, and L7 is a 25% bonus target. Again, there's escalators within all that. Equity. So you're going to get a 4-year equity grant that pays out 38% in year 1, 32% in year 2, 20% in year 3, and 10% in year 4. And then in your initial offer, a lot of times you will have a first-year sign-on bonus that will pay out in your first or second paycheck, just depending on how you're falling within the payment cycle. And then there's refresher grants, and refresher grants are just additional equity on top of your bonus on a yearly basis, so that once that initial 4-year vest goes away, your earnings continue to go up over time. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff. Yesterday I had the Google Innocent Leadership interview, and I did extremely well. As he said, you have covered my follow-up questions. Awesome. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Jeff, I've jumped off the mothership. Okay, I've recently joined Microsoft. Google has been really kind to me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Awesome. And I just think it's always so important to recognize that Google, Microsoft are great companies, right? And so we gotta look at these opportunities as I know a lot of people say these big tech companies are their dream job, but you also there's got to be a lot of things that happen to make sure that you stay happy in these roles. And so moving on is good. And if you leave on a high note, if you decide to go back, you can always go back. Do you see more layoffs happening in January? Ooh, the timing's tricky, Stephen. I'm not sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure if there are going to be layoffs, and I'm not sure of the timing, but I would think that they would be later this year or early next year if we see them. But I obviously it's all guesswork on my end. Yeah. Why does Google give a lower base than other companies? Doesn't that put Google in an unfavorable position during negotiation? Because even if Google equity refresher is higher, they cannot guarantee that. Well, they kind of can. Refreshers, if you work a full calendar year, are guaranteed, right? They can't guarantee the stock price. And yes, the base is a constant tough point for people, but total compensation globally, we could just argue that they're the best paying company globally. If we look at a holistic, all roles, they're probably the best paying company in the world. People will argue that up and down. I have negotiated at this point, I think I'm well past 500, maybe 600, 700 Google offers. And I will consistently say that the money that they offer is the best. And this is comparing it to other big tech companies, startups that pay a ton like Anthropic. Like, are they going to win every time? No, but they win the vast, vast majority of the time. So it's more of a philosophy question. Can you get comfortable with a total compensation model? And a lot of things with the equity, look, you can get that equity and sell it. You're going to have blackout periods where you can't sell the equity, but you can sell that equity pretty quickly. Okay. Location is Mountain View. Well, it's been a while. I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. It hasn't been that long. Like a typical coming in the door, total comp for an SDE in Mountain View, like 250. I don't think Amazon's giving that for L3s from what I've seen. I know they're not. So I would negotiate. I would definitely be trying to negotiate into the 300s and then have them bring you back to the mid to high twos. And then if the Amazon offer is really strong, you can introduce it at that point, but introducing it too early could hurt you. And if they say, hey, I want to see the Amazon offer, just say, hey, look, I'm going to introduce that if I need to, and just kind of leave it at that. And obviously say that in a really nice way. Okay, we'll just go down to this. Awesome. I'm very, very excited that you're at this point. It's awesome, especially because they're not hiring as many L3s and L4 SDEs as I've seen in the past. Hey, Jeff, how long does it take for team match at Google? I am in a GRP, I don't know what that is, where people are still interviewing. So there's definitely more headcount left, but I haven't gotten any team match for 3 weeks. Nobody can answer how long team match takes. It could be a day, it could be 10 months. It's always challenging when you get to the team match stage, especially as some time gets built in. That's when it starts to get trickier. The longer it gets, the percentages go down. But again, this is about building a good relationship with your recruiter, continuing to check in, continuing to see what they like as a cadence. Really important. In the team match form, I said I'm open to all roles and locations, as well as I have 1.5 years of experience. Okay. Staying flexible on role type and location can also be helpful. Okay. So come back, keep us posted on how things are going, but just continue to build that strong relationship with your recruiter. It's going pretty good. How are you? Raul, congrats. Great to see you again. I've noticed a few people in my network making the same move. Can you share why you did this? Does Microsoft pay better? New opportunity? AI better? GPT versus Gemini? Just curious. Okay. Good questions. I can answer one of those right off the bat. Role for role, level for level, Microsoft doesn't even come close to Google in compensation. It's not even close. They're not even playing the same game. Now, that doesn't mean that Raul didn't make the move into a bigger position, more responsibilities, and there are always outliers. But Microsoft, of all the big tech companies, Microsoft probably pays the least historically and classically of all the offers I've seen. And just so people are wondering about trends, Meta's offers have gotten significantly worse over the last couple of years. Their equity numbers are going way down, and I think Amazon is trending down as well. And this is all just based on data of real offers that I've seen and worked on. He, in fact, told me to ask questions unofficially, as he was saying he's typing hard throughout the conversation. He said conversation was very good and didn't bore me at all on Googling us. Okay, interesting data point. Okay, good luck on your GNL, John. Hey, Jeffrey. Joined late, update from last week's live. I took your advice on T-Match interview. Now I'm meeting with teammates. Your follow-up email with the recruiter made this possible. Next, hope to have an offer. And of course, I'm here to help if you need that help with negotiation. But awesome. I'm really glad. Meet with those teammates and be really positive. How can I best help you? What have you seen from other people joining the organization that make them a really good teammate for you? So we're making it really focused in on these teammates and how we can best help them and have a really good and meaningful impact with them right off the bat. That's going to be a great way to win them over. Good luck. Come back. Let us know how it goes. Any tips for how to not bore them in the GNL? We don't bore them by having depth in our answers, right? So on the behavioral side, not only what you did, but how you did it. And on the hypothetical side, how would you do it? Let's get into the weeds. Let's get into the details, make some good assumptions, get them visually connected. Okay. It's really important. And we'll actually do the follow-up here and we'll come back to Will in a second. Need to take all the advice given by Jeff, especially infusing learning and reflection. Made my day. Humility and being humble. Yeah, and part of humility and being humble is we definitely need to make behavioral answers, for example, I focused, but highlighting the strong collaboration skills, great team members, and using all those words is going to be really helpful as well. What is a background check looking for after Google gives an offer? They're asking for previous paycheck, W-2 from my previous company. Are you outside of the US? Because in the US, I don't believe they can legally do that. But the background check is just looking to validate employment dates, employment title. That's usually it. That's all they're looking to validate. And they'll do a criminal background check, but that's really it. What do they expect in terms of experience for an L3 role team match? Well, I don't believe I can answer that question. The expectations would be across the board. It's dependent on the person, right? So what to expect is your ability to show great energy and enthusiasm in that conversation, and to ask great questions in the team match call about the specific hiring manager you're interviewing with. What do you love about the role, the company? Get to know them a little bit better. But what they expect, everybody's going to have different expectations. My colleagues have been saying that promotion are getting increasingly difficult at Google. Google no longer offers remote roles. Okay. At Google, I got to senior level, a sizable compensation boost. And at Microsoft, I got a senior level, sizable compensation boost and a remote role. Remote's good. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I will say absolutely it's getting harder to get promoted at Google, but I don't want that to deter anybody because it's like scenario to scenario. But yes, I've heard that as well. Cool. Without sharing too much, I think it's safe to say that everyone should level up prompt engineering in their toolbox of skills. It absolutely helps. If we're not utilizing AI as part of our daily process and everything we do in life, I just think we're making it harder on ourselves, right? There's not a single day that I don't go in and ask GPT at least one question, if not 100 questions, right? And like work with it to problem solve. The tools are fantastic. They're going to speed everything up for us. Let's use them. If we're not using them, we're going to fall behind. And so it's really important. A couple things that I love when using tools like this is I always ask them to claim their expertise. You're an expert copywriter. You're an expert interview question creator. You're an expert product or whatever it might be. And then if it's complex, I always ask the tools to ask me follow-up questions to give them more guidance and advice. Those are two really simple tips and tricks that have worked well for me. I was told there's only round 1 to round 3 and no review committee and elimination rounds. We'll have a team match round 2. Is this always the case? John, it's a role by role basis. It became much easier to have elimination rounds when everything went virtual. You used to have people on site for a day or a handful of hours. So the elimination thing, yeah, like I agree with that. Like if somebody doesn't pass an initial interview or they bomb it, like interview team probably shouldn't waste their time. There's no review committee, which means like some roles will not have to go through HC. You'll just be approved or not approved. A lot of roles are a hybrid. Like sometimes there's that option. Now with team match, if you don't pass a team match, you don't get eliminated. You just get put back into the team match bucket and be able to match with number of teams, typically. Okay, and we're going back to John. You need to show how to collaborate within your team in the GNL and also decision-making. Empathy is key in your customer-facing role. Yeah, absolutely. Decision-making, collaboration, empathy, and then I would say absolutely things like inclusivity, psychological safety, positive intent, concepts like that are all going to be very, very helpful as well. Hey, thanks so much for the input. Jeff, just an FYI, I find refreshers also confusing, but also besides the point because long-term stay seems more unlikely given current trajectory. Yeah, and if you are going to stay for the long term, refreshers are key. Again, I think I would kick people back to that video because now that I'm remembering, I did do a video on that with a screen share. It might be helpful. What frequency do you recommend I should follow up with my recruiter? I don't want to annoy them with constant emails about team match, but I also want to look interested in joining Google. Ask them, how often should I be checking in with you? Weekly? Should I check in with you once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month? Ask them what their preferred cadence is. That way, when you ask and you get permission, they won't get annoyed. Positive mindset is very much needed. Yeah, and if you're going into the job interviews with a negative mindset or not believing you're going to get the job, you won't. The joke that, well, I don't think it's a joke, but I always tell people, when I got the job at Google, one of the reasons why I knew I was going to get the job is because I believed I was going to get it. I just knew going into those interviews I was going to get the job, and I did. Was that everything? No, I practiced like a crazy person, but it's important. That self-belief is really, really important, and positive mindset. Thanks for that. Do you think people in their mid-career need to pick up Gen AI learnings to stay relevant? I think there's two things. I think everybody needs to utilize AI to stay relevant, especially obviously in the tech industry, of course. And then, like, the other thing that people need to be okay, so do we think people in their mid career? Well, I think everybody in any stage of their career needs to pick this up. And I think just staying up to date on everything is going to be critical and important. Like, we just can't fall back on this. And then how do we utilize AI to save us time, even if it's not a part or core function of our job? I left 7 years ago. Yeah, it's been a long, long time. I cleared the CE3 interview almost a year back, waiting for team match. Not sure how to push this forward. Well, you're coming up on where the team match may go away. So I would definitely be touching base with your recruiter today, just saying, hey, like, what are your recommendations? Ask the same question to your recruiter. I completed a virtual on-site for my L4 role, 1 behavioral plus 3 coding, about 1 month ago, and have been in the team matching phase for about 3 weeks and have no matches. Again, all you got to do is work with your recruiter. They cannot guarantee a team match, but figure out the appropriate cadence. You can always share roles with them as well. But if you're going to share roles with them, 1 role at a time. Send them the link, your availability, reiterate your contact info, send them an updated resume if needed. But you just really want to work with your recruiter and be gracious and kind. Followed up with my recruiter fortnightly, and I agree with my recruiter on the frequency, as Jeff suggested. Thanks for that. We just want to connect with our recruiter and ask them. It's the only way to guarantee that we're not annoying them. We got to be more direct, right? I think we're like living in this world of ambiguity. Let's just go direct to the source and ask them, because we're not supposed to be experts. They're the experts. So we just go to them and ask. I hope that helps. Google Cloud is hiring 100%. I don't know about layoffs. Again, it's a question. Like, we're not really sure. But Google Cloud still, from my lens, seems to be performing well. I'm still getting a lot of Google Cloud clients. It's still one of my big client bases. So I only understand the world the way I see it, right? That's the same for all of us. And so as I continue to get those clients, it tells me that they're continuing to hire in that space. I'm not checking the number of openings, but again, it still seems to be flowing. Yeah, absolutely. I was not sure that I can ask questions like that. I thought they will think of it as unprofessional. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure why. Why would it be unprofessional to ask how often you can be checking in? It's a very, very fair question, right? Like, if anybody ever asked me that question, I'd be like, oh yeah, check in every once a week, or check in every couple weeks, or check in once a month, or hey, like, we're pushing this out, check in with me every quarter. Like, it's a very, very fair question. And because quite often people will not be as transparent as we'd like, we got to ask them, right? It's really that simple. And you're not the expert. You're not supposed to have the knowledge. Whew. Wow. We had a fantastic session today. And thank you, everybody, so much for being here and showing up. This was an awesome audience, great engagement. We haven't had a live this long in a while. So this is really cool. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into my wrap up. Any last minute questions? If you have a question, please ask it. And then I'm going to answer any last minute questions and hop off. Let me answer this question before I go into that wrap up. Why and what is the need of team match in Google? I mean, they don't advertise only. There's a need the hiring manager. Why do they do this? I don't like team match. I'm with you. I don't like it. I don't care for it. I think that roles should have identified hiring managers and that everybody should be connected to a hiring manager. The reason why they do it is so they can put you into a more general bucket position, software engineer, program manager, product manager. And so they can just see if you're a good candidate on the front end and then filter you to hiring managers. I don't like it either. Yeah. So why do they do it? I don't know. Everybody seems to hate it, but a lot of companies do this process. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't see any good. I mean, I get why they do it. It's just to get as many good candidates into the pipeline as quickly as possible. But it's really really bad from a candidate experience perspective. Unless you nail the first team match, almost everybody gets frustrated by this part of the process. Hey, thanks for being here. Oops. Thanks, Jeff, for your time. I wish everybody have a great day. I wish for a team match soon. Good luck. Absolutely. If I'm being interviewed for a specific role as a hiring manager was part of the interview process, would I have been in a team match as well? No. No. If you're going after a specific position with a specific hiring manager, you would not be in the team match as well. So that's just not the scenario. Team match is for a not identifying a person up front. And I would say it's like a 50-50. 50% of the roles have a hiring manager identified up front and 50% don't. Great content. Thank you, Jeff. Very detailed and great engagement. Yeah, great engagement today. Absolutely. Okay. Rolling into it. I will answer any last minute questions. If you're here, we still have a fantastic audience. Please don't be shy to ask your question. Let's get them in here right now. Today, if you use the promo code layoffs at G, 25% off of our AI tool. That's for our 1 month and 3 month packages. At practiceinterviews.com, if you go there, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy sessions. It's mostly resume and LinkedIn, but a little bit of networking and overall career strategy. Interview course, we are updating it to have large language models included. The course was released 2.5 years ago, where like GPT wasn't a thing we were using on a daily basis. Need to make that update. Anybody who has previously bought the course, you're going to have access to all of that. All updates and future updates will be included. For anybody considering purchasing it, I'm not saying don't purchase it today, but we will be running some Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales as well. Okay. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original long form content every Monday. I have taken a massive break from shorts. So I just got to force myself to do more shorts. So that's upcoming as well. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I am going to answer these last minute questions and then I'm going to hop off. I'm being engaged with their Slack channel as well. Yeah, and the Slack channel is sleepy. I definitely want to spend more time and get more people back on there. A couple of years ago was like crazy and like lots of people crazy in a good way. Lots of people coming in and commenting. It's slowed down as tech hiring has slowed down, but please continue to comment there. Comment on these YouTube videos. I'll do my best to get to everything in a timely manner. Thanks very much, Jeff. I'm going to drop. See you next week. Thanks so much, Liz, for being here. I'm going to drop off too. Thank you, everybody. This was just an amazing session. I think, if I'm reflecting on this year, this was maybe the best live of this year, one of the best lives of this year from a timing perspective, engagement perspective. Thank you. I'm here to help. I will be back next Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much. Have a great day.